How's it, everybody? Welcome back to the Rocky Fern. My name is Luca and I have OI type 4, and in today's episode we'll be checking out some of my wish list Hoya that I've received over the past year and how they're doing. So let's get into it. So this is the Hoya. It's a mouthful. This is Hoya blashernaezii, subspecies Siariae, okay? I said it only 100 times before I got it right. But anyway, this is such a cool Hoya. The striping on the leaves, the veination is so cool. Very stiff leaf. Very Nicholsoniae, except that Nicholsoniae, the Nova Ghost, which is what this Hoya reminds me of, is a very thin-leafed Hoya. This is very thick, kind of very rigid-leafed Hoya. No tomentosa that I can see at all. A very smooth leaf. I got this plant from Tropical Exotique, the same place that I got the Discadia cochleata. Kelly is amazing. I really like working with her. The plants come in great. They come in from Thailand, come in really, really good shape. It's the easiest, best import process I've ever had to deal with when it comes to Hoya. My Paradisea madagascariensis came from there, and so did the wallichii and the wallichii. So definitely check her out. I'll definitely post her information here and in the description. But I've been keeping this guy in stratum like I do most of my Hoyas and most of my imports, and it did spend quite a bit of time in the prop box, but it's been going super strong outside of the prop box. And yeah, it was definitely on my wish list dream plant, or rather it was definitely on my dream plant wish list when I first ever saw the blooms on this Hoya. They're amazing, delicious, if you will. I mean, just so freaking cool. And the colors, maroon and orange, you can't be wrong with that combination. I do notice that the bark on the stem is flaking, so it definitely has kind of like a paper bark look to it. Unique, as far as I know, for Hoyas. And I don't know if that was transport stress, if that's a subcutaneous or a cutaneous wax, a cuticle wax that's just flaking off. I'm not sure, but I like it. So that's a beautiful Hoya. Definitely check it out. Something easy to keep and worth the time. So let's go on to my next one. All right, so this next guy is Hoya meliflua. It's a very, kind of, I hate saying the word plain Jane Hoya. It has a trebuli type, Hoya trebuli look to it. The flowers, of course, are amazing, but it has just a very simple growth habit to it. It's, it's got this nice big growth point on it, very thick, fleshy leaves. It's definitely a Hoya that I would recommend for almost anybody. Meliflua isn't as common as some other Hoya, which is kind of why it was on my dream plant wish list. And now that I have it, I'm really glad it's in the collection. It definitely is a killer plant. And what's kind of crazy is it already has a peduncle forming right here. I can't even believe that. So I'll do a follow-up on this guy and show you the flowers. The meliflua flowers are just exquisite, but I can't believe it's starting to throw off a peduncle already, and this is how much new growth I have. This was also from the Tropical Exotique order, and yeah, it came to me amazing. They sent them in these very tightly plugged sphagnum moss plugs, and I decided to keep them in there just to get them through the prop box transition phase. And I noticed, I was concerned that the moss plug was too tight, but it wasn't. They just grew around it and through it, and so I have since removed most of that and put them inside the stratum once they made their comeback. But yeah, meliflua, just a really cool plant. I have another bigger one outside, and that one's doing really well too. It's out getting full exposure to morning sun, and yeah, it's doing great. Let's move on to the next guy. So this guy has been on my dream plant wish list for many years. It's Hoya archboldiana, and it's because it grows such huge blossoms, much like the imperialis or the kaimuki. I believe the archboldiana is one of the parents of the kaimuki hybrid. It is such a cool Hoya. It's ever since I first saw it, and this is years and years ago. I've always been a Hoya head, but when I first saw it, this guy I really wanted it. Now, archboldiana kind of has a reputation for being hard to keep, hard to bloom at least, and so far growing it has been fine. A lot of people here in Hawaii have a great time growing Hoya. The Kaimuki hybrid obviously originates from Kaimuki, Oahu, and it kind of just shows you just how well this plant, or these plants, grow here. But as far as blooming goes, I'm not sure, because I'm not there yet, but I am hoping to crack the code here in subtropical Hawaii, and I think it's a combination of winter-summer temps for the temps to drop, and also the dry humid cycle. I think that will help along with the natural photo period of summer and winter to get these guys to bloom. Archboldiana has very thick leaves, dark, really dark evergreen leaves, and they're long and lanceolate shaped, which is what I really love about this species. So this is one of those plants that was being kept in a prop box, and it was hitting the ceiling and just getting all kinds of bunched up. You can kind of see that, but it's going to stay out of the prop box now and make its transition into ambient temperatures, ambient conditions, and I'm really hoping once this thing is nice and big that it starts to bloom. I believe it's very similar to the Imperialis, where it has to put on quite a bit of growth before it shoots off any flowers and any peduncles, which makes sense, because if you remember, those Imperialis flowers are huge, and I believe archboldianas get even bigger than that. So that would be really cool. Stay tuned, follow along, because this plant is going to be well worth the wait to see this guy come into bloom. Let's go into the last plant that I have from the Tropical Exotique order, and then we'll keep moving on. All right, so this has to be one of my favorite flowers of any Hoya. This is such a cool flower. This is also very candy-esque, and not to mention that the leaves are splashed and beautiful to look at. Golly, I can't wait for this thing to take off. So this, without further ado, is Hoya wallichii, subspecies Tenebrosa, and it has a two-colored flower, and I'm telling you, it is exquisite, amazing. I don't know about the scent yet. Like I said, the flower itself is just super beautiful. I can't wait to get this to flower to get a chance to smell it. But I just noticed, and maybe I've just missed it, maybe a lot of Hoya share this feature, but the Hoya blashernaezii, the one that had the paper bark features to the stem, this wallichii is doing the same thing. Let's see if I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. You can see that it's starting to paper bark, which is kind of cool. I hope I haven't been missing that this whole time. To me, it seems like a new feature, but that's what I love about keeping plants. Actually, the natural world is it's always going to keep you guessing. So yeah, so this is wallichii tenebrosa, very cool plant, very cool Hoya, and it reminds me of multiflora javanica a lot, with the splashing and the kind of narrowest thinness to the leaves. It is a little bit thicker than a multiflora, but not by much, at least by my perception. But yeah, Hoya wallichii tenebrosa, very cool. The flowers are going to knock your socks off. So let's get into another seller, one of my favorites, and that is Cindy from Hala Hoyas, an Instagram seller that you can't beat. I mean, she is incredible, just incredible to work with, gives you amazing quality in plants. Her customer service is top notch. I've featured her in a couple of my videos. I can't say enough about her. Check her out, she's incredible, just amazing. So first off, we're going to go with this guy. This is Hoya leucantha, and what drew me to these plants is their new growth is rainbow-esque. It seems to transition from a nice copper to a red to an orange to this green, dark green color that you see. A very small leafed Hoya. This is kind of max size for the leucantha, and a very robust grower, super healthy. This thing just wants to put on growth, and believe it or not, it's probably doubled, it maybe even tripled in size since I received it from Cindy. Beautiful plant. It has a lot of lookalikes. the growth pattern is shared with a lot of other Hoyas. The leucantha for sure, the paradisea, which we'll get into next, and the medinillifolia, which we'll also get into, even though it's a much larger growth pattern. But the leucantha is such a cool plant. I love this look. I'm thinking about maybe doing a globe style trellis or a sphere style trellis where I have several other round wire and just making a globe of this leucantha. I've had to trace it back and forth and through here, so I'm gonna have to do something with it, but it is such a cool looking Hoya. It's definitely one of my favorites. I'd say top 10 for sure. The new growth is amazing. Yeah, I can't tell you how much I love this plant being in the collection. So definitely check out leucantha, very cool plant. And we'll check out another one. This is Hoya paradisea, and it's very similar to leucantha. In fact, if I were to look at these two side by side, I would say I may confuse them for the same plant. They definitely are different. The leucantha has kind of a teardrop shaped lanceolate leaf, whereas the paradisea has a more just typical lancet shaped leaf where it's kind of just round throughout. It doesn't have any tapering to it. But yeah, a beautiful plant. It definitely does share the same type of growth pattern. Let's see if I can get that to focus on that, not my face. Where it branches out and it's different colors on the new growth, and then it starts to harden off into this very pretty dark green color. They have really pretty flowers, pretty stereotypical Hoya blossoms, but really pretty. I don't know about the scent. That's kind of the cool thing. It's like you're collecting a bunch of scratch and sniff plants, and you got to see the mystery of each smell. Why that gets me excited, I don't know, but it's just something else, another way you can interact with your plants and get my boys to interact with them too, even though they love to interact with the plants you know, on their own. It's just another way to get them to interact with it. So this is paradisea, very cool plant. This plant came in on the wish list after leucantha. I mean, once I saw the leucantha, I was thinking to myself, whatever this is, this growth pattern, whatever it is, I have to have it. I mean, it was just an itch that I couldn't scratch, and now I have them, and I'm super stoked. Okay, so the medinillifolia is the other plant that I mentioned that has very similar growth pattern. It's much larger leafed, really big leaf. This is much like a multiflora style leaf in its thinness and just the way it feels, but it has that similar leucantha growth. This guy is a very fresh import, so it's still looking pretty, like it's still recovering, but it has 2 peduncles on it. So it's obviously a plant that's very fecund and very, you know, big bloomer. So it definitely wants to bloom. It reminds me a lot of platycaulis because it does have flattened stems, much like the platycaulis. In fact, I believe that the medinillifolia was originally classified with platycaulis, and then due to morphology of the flower and whatnot, it was deemed a separate species. So now that could always go back the other way, whereas they split them and then they grouped them back together. Any taxonomy in any class of animal or plant is always, you know, moving, just like science. It's always updating, but I believe that's where we are right now. This is probably old news when this comes out, but yeah, so medinillifolia, very cool plant. I can't wait for this thing to make a fully big comeback and just be a really robust looking plant. I got one more. This is a pretty big hot plant right now. This is Hoya Microdwarf. It's the NS12-323. Yeah, this is Hoya NS12-323, or known as the Microdwarf. Why it's called the Microdwarf, I don't know, because it's not that small of a plant. But it's definitely beautiful. I mean, it kind of looks a lot like the blashernaezii with the striping, you know, the Nicholsoniae ghost. It's a very, very robust plant. You know, for as rare or as high in demand of a plant that this is, it's a very robust plant. I could take several cuttings from this right now and send them off, and this plant wouldn't know any difference. The new growth does come in kind of pinkish orange color. It starts to harden off into more of a bronzy green color, which I really like and adore in this plant. The leaves are semi rigid. They're definitely not as robust or as thick as like an archboldiana, but they're thick. They're definitely like a Dischidia style leaf. They're nowhere near as thin as like a Nicholsoniae. But I just love the bushiness and compactness of this plant. It just wants to send out growth, a ton of growth. So the microdwarf, I know it's becoming a lot more common, probably because how easy it is to grow. I know Bessie Plants has shown a video on microdwarf, and he has an amazing collection. Side note, check him out. If you don't know who he is, but you're watching this, the world is backwards and doesn't make sense. He is an amazing YouTuber with an amazing Hoya collection. Definitely a cool guy to watch, super funny. Check him out. That's my plug for you, Bessie. Anyway, his microdwarf is beautiful, and it's kind of cool to see mine catching up to his growth. It's just a very easy plant to grow. Not the smallest Hoya out there. Actually, the smallest Hoya out there is Microphylla, and I do have that. It is a recent import, and it's stupendous. It's awesome. It's very tiny. Loves very cold, moist conditions as far as I can tell. It's being kept in with the Highland Nepenthes, and it's doing great. It's in a self-watering pot. That's for another video. It's doing great. Back to this guy. The microdwarf, very cool, very pretty. These are the biggest leaves that it's producing, and it's, you know, 1.5 inches long, 2 inches. So very cool. And I'm just super happy that it's now crossed off the wish plant or dream plant wish list. Now moving on, we are going to go to Ivy, who I've mentioned before. She gave me my Dischidia blue flower. She's also an amazing Instagram provider, seller of Hoyas and Dischidia. It's super cool, easy to work with. So she sent me, this is Hoya lacunosa, the minty coin, and I mean, it's one of those lacunosas that is just all silver. Beautiful plant. You know, it's kind of similar to a Coriaceae silver, but much hardier. Now, lacunosas, for some reason, I have a hard time with them, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if they like a drier condition, which I tend to try to do and duplicate with the Stratum. And I had much better luck in Stratum than I have with Pond, but I have one, the Croniana, which now I believe is lacunosa, the super silver. That thing is going berserk in Pond, my homemade Pond. But the black Croniana it just hated it. So I had to move it over to Stratum, and it's slowly making a comeback. It's actually blooming inside the prop box. A very fragrant flower. It's filling the whole prop box. Actually, everything in the prop box smells like the blossoms of the Croniana. In fact, let me go grab it real quick. Okay, so this is the Hoya Croniana Black. I just want to show it just because of the blossoms and that spike. It has continuously bloomed off that peduncle, and now it's a spike for maybe 10, 11 blooms now. It's super fragrant. It definitely smells, it's super floral. It's a very nice scent, actually. It's a very pretty, beautiful scent, something that you would want wafting in through your windows at night. The blossoms are super petite and pretty and white and just very cool. It looks like the corolla is all fused. The corona is white, slightly pinkish. But yeah, this is the Croniana Black, also known as Lacunosa Black. And next to the Lacunosa Silver, Super Silver, or Silver Coin. Very cool. Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'll ever bring this guy out of the prop box, because even now he's looking a little, well, maybe. He's looking a little wear for tear, but, you know, I don't know. I can't crack the Lacunosa code. I love Lacunosa. Some of my Lacunosa are doing very well, and the others, like this Croniana Black, are, you know, struggling. So there's that. Okay, so one other plant that I got from Ivy, which has been on my wish list for, I don't know, 5 years maybe, is Hoya carrii, or Hoya carrii, not K-E-R-R-I-I, but C-A-R-R-I-I. And that I got from Ivy as a 1-node cutting, because they are actually quite expensive. They are you know, almost prohibitively so, but it does have new growth on it. And I know it's not really coming through, so I apologize, but you can see the new growth right there. Hoya carrii has these really kind of cool round pendant raindrop style leaves. Semi-fuzzy, little velvety looking, very, very pretty. They're actually easier to keep than a lot of people would guess. But this guy definitely needed a little bit of a rebound time, but he's being kept in ambient conditions with some bendable wire trellis and is doing great. Once he started climbing, the new leaf started forming and going off. So I'll do an update on this video when he's a much happier, more you know, a bigger specimen, and it's something better to look at than 3 leaves. But carrii, definitely something that I've been wanting, and I'm so glad to get this guy off the checklist. And then my last 2 wish list plants that I'm glad to show you right now came from Plant Haven Toronto. So I've never ordered from them before till these 2, and I'm super, super impressed. I mean, it's another import, kind of cheating to call it an import because it does come from Canada, and it's not that far as it would be as if it were from Thailand or Indonesia. However, the rules are what they are, so it's still an import. But Plant Haven Toronto kicked butt, and I don't have to say too much about Plant Haven Toronto. They have a huge following, and it's for a very good reason. They're awesome. And these 2 Hoyas that I got, I was nervous ordering them because they are known to be finicky and high demand plants. But I put them in a self-watering plant or pot and in Stratum, and they're just going berserk. They're being kept in ambient conditions. Shipping from Plant Haven Toronto was exquisite, amazing, top-notch. You wouldn't expect any less from such a high-quality company. And before I keep going on too long, let's get into it. So the first one, which isn't too big of an issue as far as keeping, is Hoya acicularis. Hoya acicularis. And I have heard that some people will lose these guys. They'll just rot out. They don't thrive. But they're doing really, really well. I also have some cuttings in here from some Hoya pandorata in here because of all the rain that mother plant was going. So I had to hurry and take some cuttings. So ignore these bigger leaf varieties in here. But the Hoya acicularis reminds me of insularis. It's a kind of curved over taco shaped leaf. Very stiff, kind of needle-like, like a pine tree. But as opposed to insularis, where they end in kind of a rounded tip, these guys, acicularis, ends in a pointed tip. But very similar, otherwise a little bit more diminutive in shape and size. And that the insularis is doing great. It's kicking butt. It's doing really well out there in the shade house and going off. So it's kind of cool. But like I said, I keep these guys in self-watering pots. This is just duct tape, metallic duct tape for duct work, because I didn't want algae growth going in there. And then I just left a little bit of a window here so I could see how full the water is. And it's got just a little typical cotton rope in there for the self-watering portion of it, but it's doing really, really well. It's put on probably 8 inches of growth since I've got it. When I first received it, it was just a tiny little cutting, but they are known to be finicky, and this guy is kind of is proving contrary to that. So definitely check them out. Plant Haven Toronto for sure, but definitely check out this Hoya. Very cool. And then the next and last Hoya that was on my dream plant wish list that I'm really glad to show you guys is this guy. This is Hoya stenophylla, and it is just the most petite leafed Hoya out there. And this guy, I've heard, is the one that is really just finicky. Not as much as Microphylla, mind you, but I've heard it is just as finicky. So if you were to take a acicularis and you were to make the leaves a lot more thin and narrow, and even the internodal spacing tighter, and just a little bit more, I don't know what we'd call it, just a little bit more dainty, this is what the stenophylla would be. It's just a very, very petite looking plant. It's just amazing. I've done the same thing. This is another pandorata subspecies of Ghostifolia in here. The mother plant rotted out on me with all the rain. But so ignore this guy. But this is the stenophylla in here. It reminds me of some sort of, like, I don't know, Australian endemic unique plant just with how thin the leaf growth is. I would never guess that this is a Hoya. Now of course when it blooms it's probably the dead giveaway. I don't recall what stenophylla blossoms look like. I can't wait to find out myself. Sometimes I won't look up Hoya blossoms if I can't recall what they look like, just to be surprised and kind of tattoo them into my brain. But the stenophylla has got to be one of the coolest, weirdest looking plants. It's kind of like linearis without the fuzz, but even linearis is a little bit more robust in growth than the stenophylla is. It's just such a cool plant, and this too is being kept in my ambient temperature and humidity. Come summertime we'll have to see how well it's doing, but it tends to, at least from the way I'm keeping it, it's convinced me that it likes a little bit higher humidity, higher moisture, especially in the soil. Stratum was going to get you that nice bridge between a good amount of moistness in the soil without rotting the roots. So definitely check it out. This is just a typical self-watering pot you can get off of Amazon. I can post something in the link if you want. Just remember that I do get a certain percentage back that goes back to helping the channel out, but I think they're worth it, the self-watering pots, but you can get them anywhere. It doesn't have to be this guy. And then the tip with covering it with this tape is just something that allows me to keep the algae out of there, which some of them that I haven't covered are, you know, within a couple of days actually start to show signs of algae, and it just kind of bugs me. I don't know why, but anyway. So stenophylla, very cool Hoya. All the Hoya I've shown you, I'm so glad that they were once put onto my Hoya wish list, or my plant dream wish list, and then I was able to cross them off, and they're growing really well. The leucantha and the microdwarf, I mean, just amazing plants. Very, very cool. Definitely subscribe and stay tuned if you guys want to see more updates on these guys. I would love to show you some of the blossoms on them. It's just a matter of time for sure. A lot of these guys are actually starting to gear up to start to throw off peduncles and then do some flowers. But until then, definitely subscribe, give a thumbs up, and we'll see you guys on the next adventure.